Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And we got a good news to pass along to you today. Our friend Sam Page let me know that he has a new weekly gig as a piano player, which we all know. I mean, that's what he's all about. He is a brilliant improvisational pianist. So we're really, really happy for him because he's been trying to get this for a while. And he's got, apparently it's a weekly gig for him. So this is going to be ongoing. So Sam, if you're tuned in, congratulations from all of us. And we'll miss you on Tuesdays until he's going to be able to return at some point, Joel. We're not quite sure when, but he's going to be
Excellent.
gone for playing piano. I mean, what a great way to go.
I'm so happy for him. That's great. He's earned it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, all right. Well, today we are going to talk about another topic you came up with. By the way, you're getting good at these topics, I got to tell you. Just as a parenthetical sideline, yeah, these are good. These are spot on. So this one is the spotlight effect and social anxiety. Something I actually kind of indirectly have had some experience with. I don't think I've had to the experience level that people who, you sent me an article on this and with the write-up in that article, people there were experiencing a lot more than I ever have. But I think probably we all have to some degree experience this, unless you're really, really extroverted and just don't give a crap because you're loving the spotlight. We probably have all experienced it to some degree, don't you think?
I think it's sort of a normal amount. I don't know what normal would be, but just it would be a little bit. It's sort of natural to think this way, but when you get into the debilitating level of it, that's when this really is important to know about, ways to figure out how to think about it and maybe adjust your attitude toward it.
So let's try to define terms a little bit. What exactly is the spotlight effect?
Okay, it covers several areas, but the spotlight effect is the name spotlight. It feels you're under a spotlight. Everything you do, there's people talking about it. If you mess up in life, all they're doing is talking about that. If you make a mistake, they're talking about you. If you're awkward, several examples. A lot of times when men too, but women in particular, go to the gym for the first time, they're convinced that people are looking at them, making fun of them, that everybody else is fit, they're not. And it is literally the opposite, but yet they can't be convinced otherwise that people are, and they often don't go back because of that. Also, when you have the idea of you mess up, like in my life, I had a big incident in my life where, I lost everything. I had a gambling addiction. I went to jail for a while, for 30 days. And that process, in my mind, I was horrified that everybody knew about that. I thought everybody was, every night I thought everybody just sitting around the kitchen table talking about how I messed up and making fun of me and all these things. Now, I'm not saying somebody along the way didn't say, oh, did you hear this happen? Maybe laughed at it. Most people have other things to go on. They're not worried about me, but yet my mind made that event like that was the most important topic in their lives. And you see this a lot with social anxiety, for example. When I have a client who asked me one day, he has social anxiety. He said, if I wear sunglasses indoors, you think a lot of people will make fun of me? And I go, I don't think anybody's going to notice. It's just, in my mind, I wouldn't think, I'm not keeping track of what I wear anyone. And my brain doesn't operate that way. So, but it's very real to him. So we create these scenarios that you're thinking, here's another good one. I have another client who failed out of college, and he was at the University of Virginia, let's say. I think that's where he was. And he failed out, and he came home, and he was horribly paranoid about being seen in public during the school year because he didn't want anyone to know. So he said, if somebody sees me, they're going to be talking about I dropped out. He was paranoid about that. And so he became almost a recluse because he was afraid people would see. I'm like, I don't think, number one, I don't think they care. And second, you're assuming you're occupying a bigger space in other people's mind that it's a big deal to you. I don't mean this in a bad way. They don't care. They don't care in a good way. But yet he assigned all this energy to it. So the spotlight effect is when you feel that everybody is talking about you, looking at you, and making fun of you or judging or whatever that statement is. But it's while not accurate, it's sort of the underpinnings of, for many people, of the social anxiety they feel.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in the past, you and I have talked about another concept that I'm thinking might be related, and I'm going to see what your take is on this. But I don't think we ever got a technical name for it, so we called it awfulizing. Basically,
Yes.
anything that comes into our mind that is a negative thing, we have a negative experience, and we just keep accelerating until it becomes a really negative experience in our mind. Do you think awfulizing, as we define it, is in relation to the spotlight effect and the social anxiety that accompanies it?
Yes, I think it's an action within the spotlight effect. It's where something happens, you're awfulizing every scenario. It's the worst case scenario. The spotlight effect is because I have this going on, everybody's going to shun me. He's going to take it to the worst level. We take it to the worst level, that my life is basically over. As I know it, I'm not going to be able to do these things. So awfulizing is a compartment often in that, because it's the process of making things much worse than they really are.
Yeah. I was meeting actually with my team, my gardening team, my employees today. And at one point in the meeting, there was an appropriate time for me to mention that we human beings have a very strong tendency to embroider. We're storytelling beings. We love stories. We love to tell stories. We love to share stories. And when we share stories, it's like the old adage about, you keep telling the story over and over again, it's going to get bigger and bigger. It's going to be the fishtail that gets, forever larger and larger and larger.
Sure.
Because that's the way we are. That's the way we humans are. We embroider. We make it bigger than it is. So really, what we're talking about here, when we're talking about awfulizing, when we're talking about that spotlight effect, we're basically taking that same talent, if you will, and kind of turning it on its head and turning it into something against us, rather than something that can actually be pretty cool.
Yeah, and when you realize that this effect often keeps you from taking action. Some people that feel they're constantly in the spotlight are they're very afraid to be seen failing or not being able to complete something, so they won't try something. They're worried about the example for me. I've viewed this multiple times on the show. Is early in my recovery, I was waiting tables at a restaurant down in Florida. And my biggest fear in the world was somebody that I knew was going to come up and I was going to be embarrassed because I'm a waiter. I had this image that somebody would see me less than, or I was struggling, was horrifying to me, because I worked so hard to keep an image of being very successful or wealthy or whatever that was. When it wasn't true, by the way, but that's my image that I had. So again, I awfulize the scenario that if somebody sees me, they're going to, just be horrified, and they're going to go tell everybody in town that they saw me, back in my hometown. It's going to be so embarrassing. And I would go to work every night. That was my biggest fear. So you see that, and it becomes debilitating sometimes because of things. You're scared to go places because what if I'm awkward here, or what if this happens, or that's where the fear that it can escalate your life to a point that you can't do anything, or escalate your fear till you can't do anything. That's the paralyzation point that I think that we have to really be careful not to get to. And the origin of the spotlight effect is I think it's sort of normal, but we overblow it a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really, this is kind of an extension of basic law of attraction theory, the idea of what you get your attention to, you get more of. And we're giving more and more attention in this instance, in this conversation, to stuff that we don't like, that we don't feel good about. We feel unconfident, we feel fearful, we feel embarrassed, whatever. And in doing so, we make it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, by the contrary, by flipping it around, if we're focusing on something that we really like, we make it better and better and better and better. We embroider in both directions. We're equal opportunity embroiderers. But nevertheless, we as a human species, we do have a tendency to spend more time on the negative than the positive. So I want to start with people who are severely impacted by this, with the idea of maybe this is going to give us some insights for the rest of us dealing with this on a more minor scale by comparison. So let's talk about, for somebody who is severely experiencing this form of social anxiety, this spotlight effect, what can that person do?
Well, usually the most simple thing to begin the process is sort of a cognitive behavioral approach where you logically process. You even in the moment saying it's really not realistic that a family is sitting around the table talking about me, or these people are talking about me when they have other things going on. It's not really, I'm not that important that they would be that concerned with it. And not what I'm saying is not in a negative way, I'm not that important, but I'm not occupying space in their brain. And the idea that everybody is constantly looking at me, in a weird way, and this is not negative to people, but it's almost like a slight narcissistic trait that you believe that everybody is remotely concerned with you. It's just this, and it's self-centered on some levels, but not, I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just a belief that you occupy more than you do in people's brain is something that, we believe that because we are us. So the most important view that I have is my view because that's my view. And with years of experience and knowing what I know now, and I say this in a very loving way, and I'm really grateful for this, but nobody really cares what I'm doing. It's nice. It's not mean. If I'm waiting tables somewhere, what's funny is I have a friend that has a restaurant here in Richmond. One night he called up and he said, I'm desperate. I need somebody to come wait tables. And I laughed. I showed up. I waited tables with him. Had a blast.
Really? Cool.
Yeah, had a fun. I donated the tips to the restaurant and just kept me going. But it was because I'm doing it from perspective. And I knew probably half the people that showed up, they thought it was hilarious. I was waiting on them, and I got massive tips. So
I love it.
Yeah, but again, it's a healed me that was viewing that as fun. The other was an unhealed me that was doing that. So working on the whole process is just not about the spotlight effect. It's about working on you as a person. It's about working on, you can cognitively realize that, but when you're constantly triggered subconsciously to believe that, it's a deeper level of work. And it's the cognitive approach is really good, but it doesn't get to the root cause of where they go. So you got to do the deeper work to really understand where that comes from, what you're fearful from, where that started, and breaking it all down and processing all that before you can get to a place of, like right now, and I think you know me well enough, of all the people on the planet, I'm probably the person that doesn't care what people think the most.
It's true.
But that's not a negative thing. It's something that somebody said something one day, said, aren't you fearful that you're going to be canceled? Like, I can't be canceled. It doesn't work that way for me. It's a belief that somehow I could be canceled that would do that. But the law of attraction being in play, where, as you point out, I love the law of attraction connection. That's why I suggested the topic. But when you're projecting that, you have reinforcing situations like everybody's talking about me or whatever. Then you do go out in public and you surprise. Then somebody will give you something. Oh my God, where have you been? What's going on? And they're going to talk about me. That's horrifying. So you projected it out there. So funny story. I've never told this on place. So years ago, the first time, because of the spotlight effect, it was probably 3 years after I got in all my trouble and turned my life around that I ended up back in my hometown. I visited my parents, but I never went out. So there was this one time when I went to the Walmart. I had to pick up something at Walmart, and I ran into a high school classmate. And I was pretty good shape mentally at that time. And he goes, oh my God, I have heard some terrible things about you. And I go, no matter how bad you think that, they were much worse. And I just walked away. And and so he actually came back and found me. And he said, I am really sorry I said that. He said, to be honest with you, I don't know why I did. Glad to see you. Hope you're doing well. I told him I'm doing fantastic. We had a good conversation. I just laughed. But it was this idea that my biggest fear became just a joke. It's like, well, I mean, you didn't hear the truth. It's much worse.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, oh, okay. But he didn't really care. He just was programmed to say that on some level. Yeah.
I'm thinking about that phrase because you've mentioned it a couple of times. You don't really care. You don't mean it in a bad way. And I totally get what you're saying. I can see where that can be confusing to people. So I'm kind of asking myself, so how would I say that differently so that people can just latch on to it? I don't have a good answer on that. That's probably why you say, well, I don't really care.
Yeah, if I had I mean, and that's why I have to, when I say it, I don't really care, but in a good way.
Yeah.
because what I'm saying is I'm not affected in a negative way by negativity.
Right. Yeah.
I am bulletproof to that. You can say, I've had people say, Joel, the stuff you believe is crazy. And I go, I know. And they have no answer to that. It is. Yeah. I'm fascinated. I believe it myself sometimes. I become unoffendable. You can't offend me. So when I'm saying I don't care, obviously I care about life. I care about my clients. I care about my family. I care about our audience, everybody in my orbit I care about. But when it comes to the negative stuff, I'm good with whatever you do too. Society in general, we have become very offendable. Everybody's offended. Everybody's triggered by that and all that. And again, I'm just not going to be. You can say whatever you're going to say, and it's going to be based on your opinion. I know the origins of what you're going to say about me is based on you, not me. So I'm good with whatever you do. So I don't care. I wish there was a better. I'm not triggered. I don't allow myself to be triggered, or whatever the term is. But I just have never cared what people thought about me. And I care a lot about people. There's a big difference.
There is a big difference. And I'm glad you bring that up, because it helps us as we're trying to process how can we express it differently. Yes. One of the things that I'm thinking about is that I've had, I think I mentioned David Strickle to you. He's a channeler, like Esther Hicks channels Abraham. And he was a host on the show, co-host for about 6 months, and he's been a fairly regular return guest. And when he channels the Stream of David, his version of Abraham, the Stream of David has shared some really cool wisdom. But one of the things that they've also shared is that there's great value in appreciating that what you don't like. Now, that's my way of saying it. They're saying it literally. That's what it comes down to. And the way that they express it is from a cosmic, source energy viewpoint, a faraway viewpoint, if you will, 10,000 foot view. Even the stuff that we don't like very much leads to what they call expansion. Yeah. That expansion is essentially the growth and improvement of all of us. And it's a hard way to look at it at first if you're not used to it, but after you get used to it, it kind of makes sense, really. Because now all of a sudden you're not getting all wrapped up in, well, this is some emotionally horrible situation. It's like, yeah, okay, well, I screwed up, but boy, did I learn from that.
The concept that, I had a client earlier today going through a very difficult time right now, and his job may be on the line. He's a very high paid, well-known person. And so he was very concerned. So he got the call from the person that may be delivering bad news or not. And he said, I'm horrified. He's on the way here. And he said, it hurt to hear it. And I said, after you heard it, are you still breathing? And he goes, yes. I said, okay, so we're starting with that. So the news of just hearing he's coming, you're upset, anxious, but you're still breathing. You identify that. Let's identify some other things. And I was able to get him back to center. And, so he obviously I talked to him on the phone till the guy got there. So call me when you're done. And he called me back in 5 minutes and he goes, wow. He said, he told me he was familiar with what happened. He said, look, there's not going to be any repercussions. Just don't do it again. And that was it.
Yeah.
And he said, oh my gosh, but you're right. He said, so, living within the moment, the power of now, there's a lot of things we can bring to that table, but the idea of trying to manage the emotions where you're at and whether you accept universally, the everything that happens, like learning to love the stuff that, whatever, and just learning to love everything or learning to accept everything or whatever your term is, it's just getting to a place where you're so good with yourself. You feel so good that no one else can affect me emotionally anymore. And it doesn't mean I don't love my son and my family, but I meant it's people that set out to hurt me or destroy me or do whatever. They had their shot, so to speak. So we're not there anymore. It's fine. So if you want to try again, that's okay. And nobody does that anymore. Nobody cares about that anymore.
Because you don't vibrate to it anymore.
I don't vibrate to it, so I'm attracted. There's also, I mentioned equal to that I don't care statement. Often you'll hear in whether it's Buddhist thought, or I've mentioned some experiences when people are doing therapeutic psilocybin trips, the message of I don't care, none of this matters at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It sounds negative, like none of this matters, but no, it's the ultimate freedom. The stuff here, none of it matters. It's okay. You're fine. But that message comes across as negative, like, oh, nothing matters. Screw it. It's not that. It's the whole concept of the stuff we worry about. It's going to, whatever these things are, they're going to do what they're going to do. And the worry of, they're going to turn out how they're going to turn out. If we do it right, it'll be to our benefit, no matter how bad it seems at the time.
Yeah. Something I've experimented with more and more over time is you use the phrase, it doesn't matter. I kind of flip that on its head, and I think, well, matter is the word that we use to describe the essence of physicality. We have, matter and energy, that kind of thing. And so my response is, well, it all matters and it's great.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same way of saying sounding opposite, but it's the same thing.
It really is.
Yeah. And so that's sort of the point. So the spotlight effect, where so many people are debilitated by the fear of what others are thinking, by they're projecting worst case scenarios, back to the awfulizing of what somebody's thinking about them based on something. The idea that you could program your brain the brain fills in spots they don't know about with information, what we do know about. So if there's something,
by the way, is where the embroidering that we were talking about earlier, that's where it comes in.
Yes, absolutely. So, the idea that you look at a scenario involving you, and I used to be here's another example. I'll interrupt myself here. Like, okay. Early in my practice, when I would get going, every session mattered. I was building my business. I was worried about money, not worried, but I knew I needed money. And so if somebody canceled, I was like, oh, are they upset with me? Did I do something wrong? It's like, and they always rescheduled. It was fine. It was never a problem. But in my mind, I was just conditioned to look for what's wrong. It's not about me. The guy had a dentist appointment. He was sick or whatever. His kid was sick.
Right.
But my brain has a tendency to, what is this about me? There's have you seen the movie Oppenheimer yet?
I have not. No, heard a lot about it, but I have not seen it.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't a spoiler, but it's something in the movie that they bring up a point. There's two people talking, and there's a third party that is assuming they're talking about him.
Oh, wow.
And,
perfect.
Yeah, and so at the end of the movie, when everything gets to the climax, you're understanding everything, they're filling in the blank. And he goes, well, you two were talking about me. And it turns out, I said, have you considered that it wasn't about you at all? And it turns out then they play the conversation and it wasn't about him at all. But we if you see somebody across the room, are they talking about me? Are you doing that? That is part of that process of you're just making them, and then the energy you're putting out, if you are putting that energy, people do feel that energy, and then it feels even weirder.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so you mentioned the spotlight effect, and that is the original topic here. Let's take what we've been talking about here back to that person who experiences that severe social anxiety, who experiences that major spotlight effect, and they feel like the whole world is watching them and judging them. It's not even so much the watching, it's the judging part. They're being judged constantly because they screwed up or they did this or they did that or whatever. That's a big leap away from I can accept and love everything in the universe. So how do we get there? How do we get that, especially that person who's suffering that way? How do you get them from A to B?
Well, again, it's an incremental process like we do everything. Ultimately exposing yourself to that incrementally is a good idea. Realizing also another thing, if you and your friends are sitting around talking about everybody, yourself, and then you're assuming everybody's talking about you, there's an origin there. When I was young, my mom, every night, she's in heaven right now. She hates me talking about her, I'm sure, but when and I'm about to. So she would be on the phone every night with her best friend, and they would spend an hour. Did you hear did you just pure out gossip hour?
Wow.
And, she's in the kitchen. So this isn't the day of self. I mean, this is the whole house is hearing it.
Right.
And then, at some point, the same lady she's gossiping with, several years later, my mom said, she told somebody a lie about me. I can't believe she did that. I go, you can't believe she did that. You two do that every night for years. Of course she's going to do that. She didn't like that. But my point is, so a lot of times the spotlight effect can be exacerbated when you're doing the very thing you're fearful of. So if you are doing that, one of the first things to do is stop that. Don't, that would be helpful to stop that belief and, by changing the way you're doing it. But if that's not part of your life, if that's not why you're doing it, not feeling this way, but again, the incremental, the change, the reprogramming of the subconscious brain by reminding yourself, look, this is not the case. What would they be talking about? They don't have the bandwidth to live their life, pay their mortgage, take care of their kids, and talk about me at the same time. If you make it logical like that, then eventually the subconscious brain is very slow to learn this way. You have to say it, then you have to change that internal dialogue, and eventually it starts to buy into it.
And I think we could probably also say that maybe it is the first step is acknowledging if you do have a connection like the one you described where you're gossiping for years and then somebody gossips about you, maybe the first step is acknowledging that you do it.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the most effective ways. If you're part of that, you need to acknowledge it. Say, look, and there was a time in my life to some level I was probably doing that, just not because it was the thing to do. And now if somebody says something about somebody I care, or even somebody I don't really care about, but if I say, look, why don't we call them over, or let me give them a call on the phone and let's discuss this with them. And that'll shut it. I said, because look, I like this person. Yeah. But I said, I'll be glad to talk to you about it, but I would like that person to be able to hear what we're saying. And of course, nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Like, did you hear what happened to so-and-so? I said, I did. And why don't we get them on the phone if we're going to be talking about this? Because I would like to hear their side of it as well. Again, shuts it down. But, you want to, I want to be authentic. I think everybody I know, maybe there might be 5 people in my life that I feel that I've met that maybe don't have some good qualities to them. I really think most people along the way just get, so I speak with that unconditional positive regard. I look at people that way. I look at what's good with them. I look at, everybody was a little kid once. They all had the same fears I had. We all went through something.
Right.
So approaching them that way and, having a new empathy for people. I also believe most people truly generally want to help. They or at least minimally don't want to harm. So, by the reprogramming process of the brain, it's like almost self-hypnosis or whatever you want to do. Just that internal dialogue of changing the way you're looking at it. There's no way that all these people are talking about me as much as I think they are. I can't occupy that space. One of the things I do love are people who screw up royally and just go admit it. It's the most powerful tool. Do it publicly, own it, and it's just, you can't gossip about somebody that told you what they just did.
Right. It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. Do you remember when? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, you remember when Steve Harvey announced the wrong winner of the Miss America pageant?
Oh, yeah, right.
Hugely embarrassing for everybody. First thing he did the next day, he was on TV. Hey, yeah. I mean, he went after it. He just, actually did a parody on some show about, let me double check this before I read this. He owned it, and he got people to laugh with him instead of at him.
Yeah.
He changed that perspective. So a lot of times, you being able to, when you're scared, what would somebody thinking bad about me actually do to me? It doesn't affect me. Do any of these people pay your mortgage? Do any of these people, are they at Christmas dinner with you? Those are the things. Why am I so worried about them when, number one, they may or may not be thinking about it, but even if they are, what does it do to me? It does nothing.
Yeah. You just used a phrase that actually summarized what I was going to say when we both tried to talk over each other. You used the phrase, it changes your perspective. And What occurred to me as we were talking here is it's not only going to be true for this, it's going to be true for any kind of self-growth that we try to do. But if we're in a place where we're dealing with this spotlight effect and we're dealing with the anxiety that accompanies it, and we're trying to take that first step, maybe we did take the first step and we managed to say, well, yeah, okay, I own this. This is me. But then what do? You change your perspective. And there's a funny thing that happens when you change your perspective. It seems different.
Yes.
And it seems different fairly quickly, which is really interesting to me. It doesn't usually take very long, even if you're kind of faking changing your perspective. If you can fake it long enough, it can be a matter of minutes and all of a sudden you're thinking about it differently.
Yes, absolutely. The changing your perspective, NLP expression called reframing is another version of that. Reframing simply changes your perspective. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but one of my more fascinating cases was a young man I work with. He is on the spectrum, really poor eye contact. It just never relates to people. I think I did talk about this recently, actually. And so nobody could ever really get through to him. And when I realized what we were doing, I turned our chairs back to back.
Oh, you mentioned this. Yes, I remember this.
Yes. And so his anxiety with me not looking at him, he just opened up immediately. And so every session when he would come in, I would have ready for him. Our chairs would be back to back, and he was very ready. He would look at the ground. Hey, Joel, how you doing? He'd go sit in his chair and then tell me his whole week very passionately, just share. And his mom would say, "What are you doing? He's opened up. And I said, quit looking him in the eye. Just stop. Just look down, talk." That made all the difference. Nobody ever told her that. So
you effectively took away the spotlight is what you did.
Exactly. I removed his version of the spotlight.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing, Walt, as we met for probably 6 months, and I was getting ready to say, look, we probably are all we need to do for now. I can follow up with you down the road, but I think we're good. We don't need to keep this going. So he didn't want to quit, but I was like, look, you're good. You don't need to keep doing this. And so we scheduled, he's very much, he needs to know he doesn't want to be caught off guard. So I said, you have 3 more sessions. So when we had 3 sessions left, he walks in, the chairs are turned. He didn't say a word. He just turned the chairs toward each other.
Wow.
And he said, I think I'm ready.
Wow.
And now he still didn't look at me.
But
at least we were face to face. He looked down, and in the very last session, he said, I want to thank you for all you've done. And he looked me in the eye for probably 10 seconds, which for him was huge.
Wow.
Yeah. So he changed his perspective of spotlighting. I haven't followed up in a long time. At last I heard he was killing. He's doing great. And he just learned to adjust the way. But his spotlight, he felt literally like looking at him. You're reading his soul, and he didn't like that.
Yeah. It really does illustrate what you can accomplish just by changing perspective. I mean, we're kind of minimizing it in a sense, because changing perspective is huge, but it's such a short phrase. It feels like it should be more,
Well, it does. Sometimes the more powerful phrases are short and you dismiss them because but when you literally talk, again, this is where my Facebook friends and people around me, this is where I just drive people crazy. I know for a fact that my reality is created by my perspective of my reality. I know that. I've watched it happen. So I'm a creator of my reality by my perspective. Changing my perspective changed my reality. There's nothing more powerful than changing your reality.
Mm-hmm.
It just
that's more powerful than starting it by changing your perspective.
Yeah, and that's it. So you have power of that. So when I learned my perspective, how you look at things, where you look at things, from Wayne Dyer Dr. Wayne Dyer was a very big believer in that. How you look at things dictates how they are. So I look at things the way I look at things, and it's my version of accurate. I see it. I'm not offended. My ego is not so fragile that I'm worried about who is advertising a certain beer or anything along those lines, or I'm not going to go up and do all whatever, whatever. I mean, that's not my orbit. So I've changed my perspective on that. That's where I don't care matters. Why do I care who promotes the beer that I don't drink?
Yeah.
Make sense?
It does make sense. And I'm also asking myself, okay, we've talked about how to help somebody who has that severe social anxiety, who has that severe spotlight effect. But we also mentioned we've all experienced it to one degree or another, unless we're like 100% total extroverts, but most of us aren't. I imagine that, I mean, just speaking from my own experience, I know this is true. When I have something that kind of, it gives me my first steps to do, okay, I've acknowledged that, oh, I've been attracting this into my life. I've acknowledged that I need to take some micro steps, and I'm not really sure where to go next, because just the act of trying to change perspective, if you're not used to it, is uncomfortable. It takes you out of a comfort zone, and it feels weird while you're doing it. And, you kind of like question yourself every step of the way, like, yeah, what am I doing? This is a bunch of nonsense. What's going on here? Until you finally get to the point where you feel you got a result, and then, oh, okay, there's a result there. And you either dismiss it or you accept it. But if you keep taking steps, you get more and more of those results until finally, whatever your limit is that you need to have, you get to the point where you say, wow, this really does work. But it's the getting through that part that's the challenge. So let's talk about how do you get that? How do you get through that? How do you get through those steps that are so uncomfortable? Yeah, I'm trying to change perspective. Yeah, I'm trying to shift things around, but it just doesn't feel good yet.
Right. Well, once you're in that comfort zone, we've talked about that several times, changing that comfort zone or changing your perspective of the comfort zone, what matters to you right now is important, because it's who you identify as. So anytime you feel that who you identify as being threatened, then you're in trouble, so to speak. Your mind, you act as if you're in trouble. But reality, being able to not get to the spotlight, people looking at you doesn't harm you. People judging you, it's them. They don't judge you. They are judging you, but they're not capable of affecting you. Their judgment has zero power. So, my idea when I was changing my perspective of all this, and once you get good at this, once you practice at it, it's so easy. But in the beginning, it's very hard. I try to, come up again with, what does it matter if they're judging me? What does that matter? I can't control what they think. I have no power over that. So in my world, everything boils down to two events: what you can change and what you can't change. That's two events. Okay. I approach life that way. So I immediately have this filter in my head, or this mark the question in my head is, if something makes me feel something, is it in my control? And if I realize it's not, I can immediately dismiss it. Not in my control. So spotlight effect is always about what's out of your control. So using that tool for me was really important. I would remind myself what that person thinks, what that person feels, how that person judges it is not my concern. It is maybe my concern on an emotional level, but it's not controllable by me. So my most effective way of dealing with life is placing extreme energy on the things I can control and wasting no energy on the things I cannot. That's success to me. That's my pathway.
I like that. Yeah. I can even think of a couple of instances recently in my life where I put myself in a place where there were situations, one particular situation that I haven't talked about and I'm not ready to talk about. I won't be talking about it for quite some time because I'm still working through it. But where I'm trying to get to the point you're just describing of I think you call it the I don't care point, the point where I've just kind of, it's outside of my control. I can't really do anything about it. Knowing exactly what you said to be true. And once I have gotten there, and I recently just did on one very important one, I really didn't have anything else I could do. The die had been cast, so to speak, right? The old gambling analogy. The die's been cast. It's too late. You can't really, it's going to roll wherever it's going to roll and you're done. And when you're in that space, even if your mind's looking for something to do, it knows there really is nothing to do. And at some point it says, okay, I give up. Because there's nothing to do.
Right. Exactly. Then, and then you say, once you realize there's nothing to do, so what is there to do? What actions can I take? I can go to the gym. I can get to work. I can work on a paper. I can get my dishes done. I have a million things I can do. And all of those things will get me in the direction of what I need to do, what I want to do. All that's there, but I can spend all day. I desperately want this to be different, but I have no control. And there's a lot of people that do that. But why won't it be? I wish if this person really only understood me. I have a client right now going through a very difficult breakup, and the young lady broke up with him, and he doesn't understand why. She just says, look, I'm just not ready. He can't accept her answer. He's not mean, but he wants a tangible answer of why, and she can't give it to him.
Right.
So our goal for him to go a week or two without contacting her and see if we can't get these emotions to go away or reduce. Mm-hmm. But he can't make it a day or two. Said, look, I got to ask you a question. And then unfortunately for him, she keeps answering him and gives him the same answer. And I'm like, so for the last month, she's given you the same answer at least 30 times.
Wow.
And you can't accept it. And her saying it, that's out of your control. Your control is doing what you need to do. Like I said, get up, go to the gym. If you want to start dating again, start looking for people to connect with. There's a million things you can do, but sitting around all day wishing she would give you a different answer is out of your control. So when you get stuck on the out of your controls, the uncontrollables, then your energy goes there. The drain of, if I had a magic pill that I could make people only put their energy toward what is in their control, we would become an amazing nation. But most of our energy is spent on what isn't in our control. And then we want to complain about it. We want to be triggered by it. And you can't change it because it's not in your control. But there are so many things that are in your control that when you put your energy there, amazing things happen. But again, separating it is it's a change of perspective of not wasting bandwidth on what you can't control. That's such an important tool. It's lost in everything because it sounds so simple again, but again, it's one of the fundamentals. It's one of the structural things of change. Energy in the area that you can only control. That's where it's well spent energy.
Yeah. Well, there's also it occurs to me that there's also the acceptance piece, because the poor guy who was having trouble after being told the same thing 30 times, accepting it, he couldn't accept it. And the real challenge is to ask ourselves, what can I do to accept this? Are there any circumstances at all under which I can accept this thing that I really, really don't like and really, really don't want?
Right. Well, and similar to one of the strategies that I always teach or share is same thing on a bigger package than I was saying earlier. That there's 3 remedies to any solution: accept it, change it, or leave it. Mm-hmm. That's it. There's only 3 remedies. So you can work hard on trying to change it. Once you identify it's unchangeable, then the only 2 situations left are to leave it or accept it. And you hear this a lot with people who are experiencing domestic violence. They're victims of domestic violence. I can't leave him. He really does. I really do love. I can't do this. And so they get stuck in this cycle. They keep trying to change him and him or her. It can be either direction. Keep trying to change the other party. And when you can't, you eventually have to say, okay, I can't accept this because I'm getting physically battered. So I'm down to one option. That's to leave it. And that's, so it's a tool. The same, when you get stuck in this acceptance piece, it is acceptance. I agree with it. Accept it. When you realize the only 2 choices are change it or leave it or accept it. And so you accept allows you have to accept that you can't change it before you can leave it usually.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying too, because you don't want to be accepting, being violent. That's
absolutely. Yeah. Or negativity. There's I have a violence on me in my world, and that's going to come out wrong. So I'm not going to go that route. But the idea that the most upsetting thing to me is negativity. So negativity affects my energy. So I leave negativity pretty quickly. Doesn't mean somebody can't have a bad day and I'm done. That's not that. But if you're consistently negative and complaining in my life, then I wish you well, but I cannot be around that energy on a consistent basis. It just is something I have to leave.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that. And in fact, I think it's fair to say, you tell me if you agree or disagree, but I think it's fair to say that when we consistently adopt that idea, what you just described, the idea that I really only want, I'm going to flip it around, that I really only want to be around positive people, or people who are at least neutral minimum, just,
Yes. Yes.
able to at least carry on a conversation that doesn't involve tearing something down.
Yes.
As long as that's the case, then the action of giving my attention to those people basically leads to an experience where I don't get the negative people anymore. Do you get that? I mean, for me, they will occasionally show up, and I can always, if I really want to, but I don't always want to, but if I really want to, I can track down in my own memory of what happened. Like, oh yeah, I was kind of focusing on some of that crap myself, and sure enough, here they come. But if I can stay consistent about it, they don't show up. They just aren't there.
I don't have, in my personal life, my business is different because that's sort of what I do for a living.
Right.
In my personal life, I don't attract negativity any longer. I don't. I don't have, everybody in my orbit is positive. I don't want to say I'm the cause of that, but I know people at the gym that I've been friends with a long time, when they do the normal traditional complaining, everything's falling apart. I reframe that for them. And most people are like, hey, did you wake up today? Bottom line, yes, then we're good. That's, you're here. And that's sort of that mentality. And it becomes contagious when you sell it that way. So yes, negativity is something it's my kryptonite. And I have a great reserve of positivity and perspective, but man, when I'm around that pretty heavy, that needle goes down real quick. I drain pretty quick, and I have to get out of there.
I'm with you on that, because if I'm around an influence, a human who is expressing that level of negativity, I don't even have to think about it. I'm gone. I can't be here. Sorry. I have an appointment that just came up.
Yeah. I had a lady that came to me for treatment a few years ago, and she came in and she said, well, I can't, before we began, I can't exercise, I can't meditate, I can't, and she went through the list of what she can't do. And she wanted to talk to me about some of her depression and ways to work around that. And I thought it was funny. She didn't. I go, I can't help you.
Yeah, I can see how she wouldn't like that at all.
Yeah. And I said, you're going to need to see a traditional therapist, because everything you say you can't do, first of all, you won't do. And I know that, you know that. So why don't you need a traditional therapist? It's just not something that you and I are going to have a good match, because everything you said is what I'm going to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And I didn't even charge her for the session. I said, have a good day.
Sure. Like, yeah. Well, you're an upstanding guy. I mean, if you can't really help the person, you're not going to charge them.
Yeah. No sense in us wasting each other's time. Fortunately, she didn't give me a Google review or anything. But yeah. Again, it wouldn't have mattered. I would have made it in the right way anyway. So, but that's the perspective change. What we want to do, whether it's spotlight effect or whatever we have going on, there are systems in the general term of perspective change or identifying the controllables and the uncontrollables. Those are little tools that help. What other people say about you is totally out of your control. Yeah. It's none of your business. That's a very common quote, very good quote. What other people say about me or think about me is none of my business. It doesn't matter.
I can hear the contrarian side of myself coming out as you were describing what that woman was saying, because if I had that woman sitting in front of me and she was saying, I don't meditate, I don't do this, I don't do that. When she was done, I would say, what do you do?
Yeah.
Give me something to hang on to here, because I don't know what it is.
Well, she complains that she
complained, right?
Yeah. So, but again, it's one of those things that, when you sit down and you're already guarded, I've already tried this doesn't work. And then why are you here? It's, this
Great
idea
question.
that, yeah. So you can't, I said, you're talking about everything I do. That's what I do. It's you can't do it. I'm not mad because you can't do it. I'm just telling you, I can't help you, because that's my whole toolkit. You basically just laid out there. So,
and really what's at the root of that particular woman's situation, and now I'm perhaps doing a little judging here, but I'm going to judge anyway, because I think it might be true. I'm curious to know what your take is. But she's pretty much decided that she can't get better.
Well, yes, from what little bit of information I have, that appears to be the case. And there are people who get conditions, they buy into the concept that they cannot change, and then the law of attraction brings that reality to them.
Right.
It cannot change. I can never get better than you cannot. I believe anything, you can get better from anything. I believe that you can overcome anything. There's a lady that, my hometown, before I lost my son TJ several years before, she lost her son. And we were not in touch. And she was very kind. She reached out to me and she said, I'm sorry that you lost TJ. She said, you'll never get over it. It's something I can never, it just has destroyed me. I have some days I can't even get out of bed. I said, I'm really sorry that you're going through that. And I was. It's very sad that she was going through that. But I just, again, my perspective is different. TJ would expect me to get off my ass and quit whining, get busy, do it, go harder, work harder, I lift weights in the gym for two of us now. I make money for two of us now, doing what he couldn't do. That's my change in perspective. He's not here, so I have to live for two people. I don't have to. I choose to live for two people. And again, that's my perspective. Am I ever over TJ's death? I don't think you can get over it. I'm not suffering because of TJ's death every day. Again, he would be horrified at that fact. That's so opposite TJ.
Yeah. And this is a fairly common thing. There are a lot of people who experience that. I have to admit, well, we were having a conversation on the show the other day. We were talking about, soul contracts and all this kind of stuff. And I offered an opinion kind of off the cuff, but as I thought about it, I realized it really is true. A lot of people get all upset about this whole idea of a soul contract. Like, well, why would I choose to come into a life where I'm going to be abused or something like that? And I get that. I totally understand where they're coming from. But you know what's worse from my perspective? The one that I have, this is the one I have the most trouble accepting. It's the person who chooses to come into a life and then refuses to change. And I don't understand why you would do that. But people do that regularly.
There are people that, and I think that's part of the life process. My personal opinion, not anyone else's, my personal opinion, you're here, and as you said, I don't use the word soul contract, but you chose this life, so I guess it is a soul contract, that you came here, and the situation you're born into is sort of the reason that you're here. With the goal of changing, you've been given, it's like this ultimate game. Here's your body. There's no instructions. Figure it out. And we're doing it. That's why you came here. It's like an amusement park. You're going to go figure it out. What is this? The idea I think I've used this. We talked about this before. When I had somebody ask me, what if, why would somebody come back as a paralyzed child that can't speak? And I said, what if you lived a life that you hated being taken care of? You needed to feel what that felt like. Then you chose to do that. What if the parents of that child have no empathy for people and never had to take care of anybody else and chose to come back and learn that? What if that's the reason? I don't know it to be a reason, but there are perspectives that would allow that. And so, it's just one of the things that we're here to experience. We're here to change and we're here to grow. The frustrating thing, I guess it's not frustrating because that not for me, because I have adjusted where I've been. But people that grow up with the exact same beliefs and never look differently and never explore their options and choose to believe the exact same concept they always believe, it seems sort of sad to me that you're missing this opportunity. Go experience it, change it.
Yeah, and that's why I don't understand it. I don't. Yeah. I'm not saying that they're wrong. The closest I've come to finding a way to accept it is kind of along the lines of what you just described, trying to imagine what are the scenarios under which they might choose to come into a life and be like that. Yeah. Maybe if you believe in a past life, maybe in a past life, they were dealing with somebody who had the same kind of thing and they were trying to change that person, couldn't do it. So they figured, well, I'm going to see what it's like because then maybe I'll get some insight into why it is that people do that. So I'm going to have a lifetime like that. I can conceive of that. Personally, I think I'm a little bit crazy when I say it, but nevertheless, I'm going to take that perspective and see maybe that could be what's going on.
Well, it could be, but to me, again, allowing beliefs to take place, whatever you believe, is perfectly fine, and understanding that any of these things are possibilities. It's just trying to again not get stuck in the don't get stuck in being stuck. It's like I can't live or believe this or I can't do that. we were having a conversation about a topic before the show started. Now, I'm fascinated by topics like that. I really am. I don't, like I've explained to you my version of crystals, theory on crystals.
Right.
You know, I personally they're crystals. They don't do anything. But people that believe they do something, they do. They're powerful for them, not for me, because I put no energy toward them. They put energy in them. Not great. But again, it's a perspective how you look at it. Changing the perspective changes your reality, and you can accept things more often, or differently. I never claim to have the answer to all of it. I really don't. I claim that I do want the answer to all of it. I'll keep seeking that. And me, I'm always looking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's what I'm passionate about. I never want to have all the answer though, Walt, because I never want to quit looking for it.
Well, I think I'm fairly safe on that one. I never will have all the answers. I'll be lucky if I have 10th of them. I mean, there's just too many answers. No.
Well, it's funny because I mentioned, we saw Oppenheimer last night, and one of the things that dawned on me, I always considered, I know how you have a super high IQ. I'm a relatively smart guy. These physicists back then, oh my gosh, wow. I mean, Oppenheimer had the ability to look at these equations in his head, right? He created these concepts. It's like, okay, wow. So, now he had other areas of life that he wasn't knocking it out of the park in, obviously, but nonetheless, the ability to create was amazing. So I don't envy it. I'm in awe of his incredible ability to do what he did. But that in no way am I upset because I don't have that ability. I have a different skill set. It's okay. And that a lot of people just feel because I believe a certain way, you should believe a certain way. And if you don't believe the way I believe, you're harming me. There's a belief like that. I don't know why.
There is. Yeah, there is. It's true.
Yeah.
And tying this back to the original topic too, the idea of the spotlight effect, all of these different experiences and perspectives that we've been talking about here, boy, if they don't illustrate for us just how little people are paying attention to us, I don't know what does. I mean, we have outlined here, the perspectives of millions, and they're all different, and they're all none of them have to do with looking at me.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I will often point out, my belief system does not need anyone else to validate it. It's my belief system, and if you asked me, I would be glad to share it. Sometimes you might ask me and it might change in the week. I might add some add-on stuff. You never know. I'm always adding stuff, but I don't mind if you say, I think you're full of crap. That doesn't make any sense. I'll be like, okay, I get it. There was a time I thought what I'm saying was crazy. So yes, I understand that part.
I'll throw in one last piece because you talked about crystals. And this is something I'm still working on. I don't work on it regularly, but I kind of use it as something I go to kind of try it out, to test it a little bit. But taking the basic concept of a universe created out of source energy, and that source energy has, through the consciousness of source, has transmuted itself into matter, into physical matter. And that's how we create the nature of the universe that we have. Along with that, and with the ideas of quantum physics, are the idea that everything vibrates. And so I've been focusing on, well, that means crystals vibrate. That means rocks vibrate. That means mountains vibrate. That means all this stuff that looks absolutely solid and not going anywhere vibrates. Yeah. It's kind of a mind mess to play with that. But I like to play with it every once in a while because it's a way that I use to kind of shake myself off of something I'm stuck on. Well, if I'm stuck on that, here's one that'll mess you up. How about that vibrating mountain over there?
Yeah. Well, and they actually, again, that movie last night, they actually addressed that literal topic. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. But the idea that what we know is what, based on our experience, what we believe is based on our experience, how we grew up, and a lot of different things that happened to us. All those things are variable. I love us all having a different view. I think that's so fascinating to me. I love to discuss the view. I am no way offended when someone has a different view than mine. I'm fascinated by it. I love to hear. Most people can't discuss religion or spirituality without getting upset. I love to. You know, did I ever tell you about the time Jehovah's Witness showed up at my door? And
Oh boy, that must have been fun.
I'm handing them the book, The Secret. I wouldn't take their literature unless they took The Secret.
Oh, that is funny.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So cause they didn't want to take The Secret. We're not supposed to have their literature. I'm not taking your literature unless you take my literature.
That's one of the best takes I've ever heard out of Jehovah's Witness
Yeah.
chains I've ever heard. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They were very nice people, but it was like, yeah, here's the book, The Secret. If you want to talk more, stop back by. I'll discuss it with
Yeah,
you.
right. That's a great way to wrap this up too. That's a nice high to bring it all to close
Yeah.
on. But yeah, good topic today. Good topic today.
Okay.
I think a lot of people can identify with it. You don't have to have the severe version of it to identify this one.
It just helps. I think what one of the most helpful things, you know, looking at just the average person can even be helpful with this. Just playing it through, realizing, am I really occupying that much space? Are people that concerned? They're there's people that are worried about their mortgage. They're worried about all these other things. They have life going on. Their kid might be sick. You don't know what they're going through, but likely they're not spending a whole lot of that energy worrying about what you're doing. And that's really good. That's a very helpful way to look at it.
Well, we had a comment in the live stream from a regular listener, Barbie. She says, great perspectives you're sharing, gentlemen. Thank you. So thanks for bringing in a topic that gave us such great perspectives.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.